It's another Friday, and welcome to another thrilling episode of the Demystify Tech Show. Disclaimer, yes, you can hear it in my voice. I've got a bit of a cold. I've been struggling with it for a while now, but we're all good. The show must go on. I'm here to give you some interesting things, some exciting things. In today's episode, if you missed, if you missed my session on the Powerful Devs Conf, well, a lot has happened since that session. So in today's episode, I'm going to demystify the Power Apps part, and then some of the Power Automate and the other stuff I used. For the IoT part, I've done that a lot of times on my IoT show. So if you want to see how I even built, I showed how I built that whole rig from start. Go check it out. But in today's episode, we're going to be really concentrating on the Power Apps part to see how I built upon that simple button interface into something exciting. Stick and stay with me. We will be right back. Yes, we are back. 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 Don't forget, this is a one-man show, so I gotta be responding to emails and trying to do this. Yeah, forget about me not feeling too well, but hey, we will make this count. So, like I said, I'll be talking about my session on Powerful DevComs. If you missed it, it was like a whole day of interesting sessions on how pro devs can use stuff, how Power Platform citizen developers can infuse, all these things and the pro dev options that you can find in the Power Platform. And as always, yours truly, I demoed how to use a Power App and Power Automate to actually trigger a sensor and an IoT system set up in my house. Also, I use that to turn on the fan, which I'll be sharing. So if you missed it, let me actually show you the setup we have, and I'll just run through it, and then we can get into how I build that. So if you're not familiar um, with what I'm talking about, actually this is it. So this was the setup I used. Let's actually go so you can see every part of it. So this is the setup I use. Let me move my keyboard out of the way so we can get all this. And I'm going to explain the whole concept again for the sakes of those that are just watching me, even though you can go back and catch up on my show. So this is what happened. So we have a Raspberry Pi, we have a relay. This is an 8-channel relay. I didn't need all the 8. I just needed one. My 2-channel relay was spoiled, so I just went with this one. We have a DHT11 temperature humidity sensor. We have a fan. This is was one of the extractors. And caution, this is actually 220 volt. Working with these things can be very, very dangerous. So risk of electric shock. Be really careful when you're working with this. So what's the whole concept with this? Now, this fan is not a smart fan, all right? It's just a regular, DC powered into your wall socket and it's running, all right? However, the whole idea behind this was that I will be able to use a temperature and humidity sensor here, this one, to sense the temperature and humidity and then send commands to activate this fan to turn on and off depending on what's happening in the room. So that is what I did. Now, all these things is pro dev. Like I mentioned, in today's episode, I am not going to talk about the IoT bit of it because I've done this several times on my show. But in today's episode, I am going to concentrate on the power of version, the power up side of the show, how to control this. So to give you a better understanding of how I built it and how I went about it, let's come here. Let's go all the way to the dashboard. So I can actually share. Go ahead and share my screen so you know that there is no um, magic happening anywhere. So let's get to this in a bit. Well, let's do this. So I'm going to go to my portal and portal.office.com. Yep. Right. Awesome. So So how I did this was I set up an IoT hub, and if you've been following on all my shows, I showed how to do that in most of the shows. So I have that set up, that my IoT setup, which is the Raspberry Pi, sends information to the Azure IoT hub, and then I can use that to do different things. All right. Now, how then would I have exported this information or sent commands? Now, you could have gone ahead to use the IoT Central. All right, let me talk about this for a while. Now, we could have gone ahead to use IoT Central, which is kind of like a pre-made service where you just plug in your devices, create your template or your interfaces, and then data comes in. You have a dashboard. You can send commands. It's all done for you. Now, we're looking that is also like a no code entry, but we're looking at a situation whereby yeah, you want to customize, you want to create something yourself, like a customized UI that speaks to you, not much more like a service within IoT Central. That's where Power Apps comes in, right? So I use Power Apps to create the interface to connect with it and just have some fun. So let's get back to it and let me show you how this works. So um, so the funny thing is that on the show, right? On the show, I just did a very simple plain power up, and then I just put a simple button that called, a function that triggered the fun. But then after the show, I spent some time, and then I actually, you know, worked it up, polished it, made it look good. So it's not just like, oh well, power ups can do fun stuff. Now trust me, April does, really really cool stuff. So this is how our power ups looks like for now, right? So if you open it, you get this UI, something really cool, something really simple. You hit the start, it takes you to the next. Now this is where all the action happens. So I moved from a simple button to a UI like this. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about how I built this UI and how I connected the things and explain a few things to it. If you're interested in the IoT part, next week's episode, I'll demystify it again. But this one is specifically to this UI and the power ups and the way I built it to interact with the fun. Now, someone is asking, well, Sam, this is the Demystify Tech Show. Why are you doing this today? Yes, on Sunday, I have a special guest on the Power series. So I just wanted to demystify this for the Power series on Sunday. So nothing, no harm intended, nothing crazy. So let me show you something. So the idea behind the very first screen, this screen, was that when this screen loads, this button is going to be deactivated until it receives a health check from my IoT setup. Okay, so the health check is going to tell it that okay, well the system can communicate with your IoT rig, and therefore now you're ready to start. So that's when I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this and then like kind of enable it. So it's only when the ping is received, a response is received from my IoT setup, that this particular button will be enabled. So that's just a kind of like a visual way or a simple way to tell you that the the application is ready to communicate with your IoT setup. All right, cool. So let's do this. I think it's even going to be cooler if it is round. Don't you guys think so? Yeah, I think so too. So let's do this. Um, let's close this. I'm still in the app, so I'm going to click here. Let's edit the app. And yeah, like I mentioned, it's just part of, I'm just going to show you how I built this. So we're going to walk through the steps. And I've already built it, but I'm just going to walk you through the whole process of how I did it so you can appreciate it. There's still a lot of work to be done on it, but it's going to be like a gradual process. I'm going to build on this, over time. There's nothing, you don't need to be stressed out trying to build all these things in time. Remember, this was just like a demo piece that went that went viral because people really loved what I did. And yeah, a lot of us have got like IoT uh, microcontrollers and all that laying around, and we haven't like done anything to it. So it's time just to um, make use of them, right? So yeah, so let's try this out. Let's do this. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. So let's go here and let's do this. I think I'm just going to change now. So if you've not used Power Apps before, all right, I would entreat you to go get a developer account, a community plan, all right, and just try your hands on it. Try building something with the Power Apps. You really appreciate it. So let's going a bit. Let's zooming a bit so you can see what's happening on the side here. Um, yeah, seeing this a bit so I can see it. So let's go on this side. I think it's going to look better if it's round. So I'm just going to go here and that the border radius. Let's try 100. And then this. Let's bring this in, and this is the button. All right. So I'm going to use the guidelines to help me place it. And let's see how this. Yeah, that's like a like push to start kind of thing. Yeah, I think I like it. I like it this way. So I'll leave it as is. Uh, okay. Let's see. So I'm going to let's do this. I mean, this I just decided just to make this change. Before we get started. So yeah, I don't know, but I feel this is you know what? We can just go ahead and undo and leave it. Yeah, let's just leave it like this for now. We'll talk about the aesthetics, later on. I think I've explained the rationale behind um the reason why I I wanted it this way, so that's fine. So this is what we have. This is the splash screen, so to say, and then this here is the main screen. So this is where all the action is happening. We have a little stuff here that's going to pull up my profile from the services. This is supposed to be a menu, so this is going to activate some menu for me to set up things. This three here is going to get the temperature and humidity sensor um, data, and then I'm going to show it here. But the highlight of what we showed yesterday was actually activating the fan and the light. If we go back to the bench, so this here, the fan is what you're seeing here. There's actually a light right here. It's a yellow light. Let me see if I can move this out, not out of it, just shift this a bit here. So when the light comes on, you can probably see, right? Yeah. So now I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to start the application, allow the Raspberry Pi to run the app, and then we're going to inject that into Red. Right, so let's do the three things here. Um, right, cool, 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 cool. So before we do that, let's go so we can see. Hi, hello, 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 Shadrach. Shadrach, welcome to the show. Amma, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Let me know if there is anything you need me to clarify or to understand, throw more light on. Or some people have been asking me some ideas of what to do, with things they have, like IoT boards and stuff they have in the house. So just let me know. Um, I will, I will answer that. Let me know. Right? Cool. So let's do this. Let's open our Visual Studio Code. And so what I have done, if you follow me, was that we use the Visual Studio, the whole code here. Let's close this. So yeah, this is the function that is triggering it, right? But that's not what we want to do today. So let's go here, and I'm going to connect. So let's say connect to a host. This is connecting to the Raspberry Pi. Are you going to make me get into IoT? Well, Steve, possibly, possibly I might. So, welcome to the stream, Steve. So the thing is that I am just I feel like and this is just my opinion. I just feel that IoT data now, less code, AI stuff, and these are things we need to take into consideration. So sorry, but yes, I'm going to drag you into some amount of IoT. All right, let's get into this. All right, so I'm going to connect to the host. Um, yep. So we are going to connect to this host. Okay. Yes, it's wanting us to restart the host extension. And for some reason, for the past few days, my Visual Studio Code has just been acting up. But I'm going to start a new window so I don't open up with all those things. So what I want to do now is to run the code. So we need to activate the code that runs on the Raspberry Pi that allows us to get all the data into it. So don't worry, I'm just building up. I'm building you up. So let's do. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to bring this up a bit, and then click here to connect. So connect to a host. Hopefully the host extension runs, and then we can um, pass this down. Well, whilst this is happening, let me bring back the app again, and let me talk about some ways that I built this app. So first question you're asking, well, yes, this is basically an image, right? Where I just put an image component there, and then I provided the image for it to use. Very simple. Now the same applies to a couple of things you see here. However, now this I call a display card. Yeah, there's another display card. No, this is a data card. This is a data card. It's a data card. This is a control card. So I'm going to explain. Now I'm using the concept of component here because I knew I was going to, need a few of these data cards. Now I'm calling them data cards because this presents me with data. And I'm calling this control cards because this allow me to control a sensor or a device. Now I actually created a component for this. I'm going to walk you through how I created the component. So this is the first of all the data card component. Let's um, let's zoom in so I can explain. So this component, this is basically an image. As you can see, I named it image icon. There's just a two text here, one text for the title and then one text for the value. And this is just a simple image. The idea was that I was going to make this a button so that when you tap on it, you can configure or change parameters for that particular data set that was coming. Now, the other question that I got, people were asking me was that how did you achieve this rounded edge? Well, worry no more. That is actually, if you look closely, it's an image object. However, it is an image object that is actually displaying an SVG graphic. So if you're familiar with SVG, so all I have done here is just an SVG that creates a rectangle. So, and the trick is that to use SVGs in an image object in Power Apps, you need to encode it with you need to URL encode it and set its data type to an image that is of an SVG type and then the UTF format, and then you can just go in there and provide the definition of it. So here, for instance, the stroke color now is red. If I go ahead here, I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you can see it. And I change it to green. Now take a look at this. Realize that it's changed. The let me zoom in so you can see this. Yeah, you can see down here that it's changed to green. If I change it to like yellow, check this out. This also changes. That's how cool that cool it is. But for now, I want it to be red. Now the cool thing is that I can change the width, opacity, and of the whole of this, and then that also affects it. Like for instance, the stroke width, I can change it, opacity, the radius, the width, and I can change now. Now the good thing also about this is that I can actually make this configurable. Now, and I was actually going to talk about that. Now, the next thing is when you create a component, it has to have, you can set properties. All right. So, for instance, this image here, there is a property on this component called, here you go, state icon. So this image, you look at it closely, data card or state icon gets its image from the property what state icon. The same thing for the title and the value, right? Now, so what I can do is that I can decide to say I want to provide, let's say, a property to change the stroke color for this outline. Let's say, for instance, when that when that particular control object is activated, all right, it should show, let's say, green, or if everything is going well, it should be green. But if there's a problem, let's say if there's a problem with it, it should show red. Just like a visual indication to tell you there's something going on. All right. So let me show you how to create the property. So to do the property, you just click on new property here, and then you give it a name. So this one we can say uh, we're calling it what? We call this one data card. So we can say, let me call this data card stroke. Um, let's see, stroke color. All right, and it creates a very simple, nice name for us, and then we can give a description. So I can say that this is a data card property, just so I can. And now you can have two. You can either have an input and an output. So an input is value or information or data you pass into the component for it to use. Output is something that the component generates for you to, use in your stuff. So it's going to be an input. However, the data type here is going to be a color, because I want it to affect some colors in like red, yellow, green, and all that. That's how I want it to, affect it. So I'm going to select a color, and I'm going to click on create. Right. So now this adds a color. Now, then the next thing is that, okay, so how, at this point, how do I set? So for instance, if you look at this one, I'm saying that the title should be data card or this. Now, if I want to access that color property that I have added, how do I do that? So let's say, um, if I wanted to use this, I'll just go ahead and say, let's do color, right? Let's do color for this. Yep, let's do color for the text. And now instead of RGB, I can say it is what? Let's say, so data card. Oh no, sorry about this. Color. Yeah, so it's data, the data card here, dot, as you can see, data card stroke color, right? So that's it. So now, anytime I change or I pass a color to this particular property, this is going to change. Okay, now I'm going to copy this, and I'm being deliberate about this. Now, the reason why I copied this is that if I want this to affect the stroke of this object, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to come in here, and you see where we have stroke, right? So I can do this and then put end space, right? Then another end here. Okay. Then in here, it's this. So the whole of this, I am going ahead to put, yep. So this one here and this one there. And then at the end of this one, yeah, I think we start to stroke. So this ends this side, and then here I'm going to put the data card. Um, so this is supposed to be color, right? So let's copy. Okay, you know what? Let me show you. Let me just show you how this is working first, and then I can come back to the aesthetics of this. All right, so we don't waste any more time. So cool. Let's save this. So now we have actually set up this property. So if I came back to the screen, right, where all this data card, like this data card is right now, you look at the properties here, this data card, stroke. So if I click here and I say red, now check this out. Do you realize that now the text is red? So if I change it to green, now the text is green, right? So that's how you can affect changes to your component. So let's just leave it to this way. And the good thing is that once you do it, you can apply it to all your other objects. So I think I like it not too dark, but kind of like subtle black. So I can select it and do the same for the rest of. So now it becomes accessible to all the other controls. Let's save this. Now let's go back and see if our Visual Studio is ready. Yes, it's ready for us. Yep. Let's connect to this. I can close this one and maximize this. So now we're connecting to our Raspberry Pi. And yeah, if you look down here, it's setting up the SSH connect to the Pi. Yep. So provide my top secret password. Connect to it. And yep, we are in the okay, so open the folder on dev node app. Yep, that's and this opens up. I think this should even ask me for SSH. I was just thinking I could have just used the Windows Linux subsystem and then just done that, but that's fine. Okay, so now once we have this running, just going to run and just make sure we have the application, the device code. So there's a device code and there's a service code. So our API was built to the service code, and then now we're using device code for this. So now if you look closely, our Raspberry Pi is now active, running, sending data to the IoT hub, and it's ready for business. Now let's come to our app. So here I'm going to run this, and as you can see, I'm going to flip this so you can see 4 screens. Now check this out. You know what? Let's see if I can zoom this. I can zoom it. Yes, I can zoom. I want to zoom in. Oh, so the app is still just sitting in the way it is. Okay, cool. So now check this out. I'm going to just click this to turn it on. So boop, I can see the matching ant at the top, and once this goes in, we should see the fun. Check that out. So now it's running. And look at something. If you look closely, you realize that the status has changed to on. The fan status has changed to on, and the icon for the fan is now lit. It's no longer dim. That's something I added after yesterday. So that's it. Now if I click on this, boop, check this out. The fan is stopped, right? So now I am able to now use this power up, all right, to control this. Okay, so the same thing for the fan. Check this out. If I do this and you look closely, yeah, that's the light. See here, right here. The light is right there. So when I kick this again, the light goes off. If I hit this again, the light comes on. And check this out. The light bulb, look at the light bulb. The light bulb stands on, all right? In fact, let me give you like a closer view of it. So if I turn this on, the light bulb, turns on and it goes off. So now the light is on. So if I flip here, you see that that's the light. The light is right on. Now, the same way, if I go back and I turn on the fan, at this point, check the color of the fan. If I turn it on, now the fan is on. If you go back to the bench, you should see the fan going and then the light. So the fan going and then the lights going, right? Isn't this cool? This is like awesome, all right? So let's come back. Let's come back here. So I turn this off and the fan goes off. I turn this off and the light goes off, right? Really, 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 really cool. So that's how I built this application. So I created an Azure function. Okay, I created an Azure function that sends a command to the IoT hub to tell it to turn on the fan or turn off on the light. And then what I did was that I exposed that as a functions API, and then I used a Power Automate a flow or process to actually respond to this button click, okay, or this toggle switch to call that endpoint. Now, there's a few things that let's reset this. So a few things that I want to mention that I noticed. So when I was working with a component, immediately the challenge I had was that if I embedded this toggle, all right, inside the component, what was going to happen is that I would have to come up with a very clever or smart way to trigger the button, because it wouldn't allow me to access the onSelect or change of that toggle because it's within a component. I can actually, however, do it within the component, but then remember that this component is going to be used for different sensors. So the immediate solution that I did was that I had to individually bring in this toggle switches in the component, but every other thing apart from the component remained the same. All right. But I in the future I figured a way to using timers and all that to trigger all that, but that's like going to be a very long process. So how is this happening? What is happening? How is it that when I toggle this, it changes the image of the fan and then changes the state. Very simple. Part of our API or part of our function is that anytime you invoke it, the Raspberry Pi collects information and sends you that information in response to the command you send to it. So let me show you this. Let's see, where is that? Let's actually go to, let me use Postman. I'm going to use Postman to do this. So if you have any questions, let me know, and then I will try to answer those questions for you. So I'm going to use Postman, right? Okay, so let's do this. So here in Postman, all right? So this is it. Now watch this. If I let's say currently it's off, if I call it with an on, all right, it's going to turn on my fan. Currently the fan is on. Check it, it's on. Even from Postman, all right? Even from Postman, it's like that, okay? Now, however, if you look at the response here, let me zoom in here so you can see. So you can see now, if you look at the response here, this is the response you get. So this is the response that I get anytime I call this endpoint. As part of the response, I'm getting the status, success, whether this request was successful. I'm getting a message that contains the status, the payload. Now, in the payload, I'm getting the state and the device. So it is this state information, the state information that is returned by the function when I call it. That is what I am using here within the app. So if you go here and I expand this so I can explain, let's format the code so I can explain this better for you guys to understand. So this is what's happening, all right? So I'm using a switch statement to toggle the fan value. So now the fan value can either give me, a true or false, all right? So I'm using this to toggle the state of the fan. Now, if it is true, right? If the value for the fan, if the toggle is true, if it's set to on, what I'm doing is that I'm setting a global variable called fan command to on, right? If it's not, if the toggle is in the other direction, then I'm setting it to what? To false. Now, why am I using this? This is the command I am passing. If you look at Postman here, I needed to pass a state of on or off, all right? So in Power Apps, that is how I am achieving it. So now I'm calling this function, sorry, this Power automate flow here, right? This is a toggle fan run. But what I'm doing is that I'm passing the command. So depending on the state of the slide, whether it is turned on or turned off, I'm passing this command into it. Now this here is like a temporary collection that is going to get the response that is going to come from this flow. So I'm going to show you the flow shortly. So what happens is that with the flow takes the response from the function and then returns it to me. Now I did this in two ways. I did it in two ways so that you guys can appreciate how this works. All right. So let's now with this set. So when anytime this is set, if you look closely at this particular, let's go back here and look at this. Let's go back and look at its property. So if you look at the data, the control cards property, if you look at its controls, you see this. So the fan command response dot state. So I'm getting the state response coming from that temporary collection that I have created. I am using last because it's a number of records, and I'm telling it go and look for the very last record in that collection, and then pick the state column or field in there. All right. So it's the same thing I replicated for the light, but I did it in two different ways. So I'm going to explain um, how I did that. Right? Let's see. Let's. So awesome. Let me bring this here. So I'm going ahead to open Automate, or and then show you the flows we have in there. So if I go to my flows, right? So right now in my flows, let's go and let's look at the toggle fan. I'm going to edit it so I can explain to you the process. So I mentioned that today I'm just showing you the Power Platform section of what I did. Okay. And then on Tuesday I can walk over the IoT part. But then if you want to see I've done it before, go check out my channel. Now, so this obviously tells us that the trigger is going to come from Power Apps. And then let's open this. So it's basic. I'm doing an HTTP GET. This is to the endpoint. If you look closely, where's my Postman? There you go. The same endpoint, right? And then it takes a query of state. And then this is the HTTP body. So this is what I am passing from Power Apps into this flow. So if we go back to Power Apps here, all right, and I select this, we go down, do you see it? Fan command. And this is where I am setting the fan command to on or off depending on the toggle state, all right? So with this status, I'm passing this in, and that's it. Now, when the result comes, it produces, you've seen, it produces a JSON output, all right? And in that JSON output is what I am passing to my flow. I'm passing that response to a flow as state. That's how come I'm able to get the state. Now, in this case, I use the connector, the response to Power Apps action here. However, for the light, I use a different approach. So let me go to my flows. Yeah, let's go back. We didn't do anything here. And then let me show you for the light. So I did the light in a different way. So in the light, it's the same process: Power Apps, HTTP request, but this time I am using a response, right? And the response produces also a JSON output that is passed into Power Apps. Now the two are handled differently. So let me show you how the two are handled. So if we go into Power Apps and you go to View and you go to Collections, if you look at the fan command, because for the fan command, I deliberately extracted just the state and then passed just the state value to it. This is how you're seeing it. However, if you look at the command, the light one, which I used a collection, you see that is a collection that has what? A message, another table. If you open that table, you see the payload. If you open the payload, you're going to see device, message, and state. Right? So I deliberately did this two ways to show you how to access it. So back in the Power Apps, you realize that in the light section, if you look at the light section, the command is pretty much the same thing, but this is what's happening. After this happens, if I want to set the properties of this control, if we go back and look at the control state, you see it. So this time, based on the payload of what? The table, the message, the payload, and the states. That's how I'm accessing it. So I deliberately did this two ways for you to see how it is to, create this thing. Now, another thing we can do, which is ironic because right after my session, April showed how to create a custom connector. If you don't want to go the Power Automate route, all right, we could actually create a custom connector with our API, all right, and specify that we want to use, and then we can use that custom connector in any other part, part of our application, or even in Flow itself. So that is probably a homework I'm going to give you. April gave you a homework. I think I want to reiterate on April's homework. Go try to figure that out. Now, if you need inspiration, all right, try going to just Google apps that do home automation and all that. Look at the UI. Look at how the UI is, all right? And then give yourself some inspiration, all right? Just look at it and, specify, oh, well, could this be this way? Could it be that way? So, yeah. And I will be doing some future update. Like, for instance, when I use a different platform to turn on the fan, it should send notification or it should broadcast to all applications telling it that there has been a change. All right. So for instance, if I use the browser to turn on the fan and I came to my power app, my power app should reflect the change of that, that, oh, the fan is already running. Because if you look closely, let's go back to Postman, right? I'm going to issue an on command from Postman. If you go here, if you look currently, the fan is running, all right? But if we come to the power apps here, the power app says that the fan is off. So that is something I have not implemented yet. It's on my to-do list. So I'm going to the next thing. I'm going to implement kind of like a notification so that if my system is running, all right, and then the app starts. First of all, I need to query. Okay, so this is something I can do anytime the app starts. I can query my system, right, and get the state of it. I can query the device twin and get the state of the system and update all the controls with it. In the same way, if I update it here, it should reflect on all the other systems. So I think that will just bring us to the end of today's session. I hope this was useful to you. If you want to know something specific about how I built it or how I did this, just hit me up on any of my my social media handles. And please, 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 here, subscribe to the channel so that we can get you good content. So then, if you have any specific need, um, or for me to show or work something out, just let me know and I'll show you how to do that. With that said, let's turn off the fan, turn on the light, turn on the fan, and then we can say, have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful evening. Stay safe, enjoy yourselves, and one love. I'm out.